fun. Every episode of The Angry Chicken is made possible by our amazing patrons over at patreon.com/tag. For more of Jocelyn's content, check out jossplays.com. And if you can't get enough of Ridiculous Hat, follow him over on Twitter at Ridiculous Hat. The Angry Chicken is a production of A Move TV.
Time's up. Let's do this. You beast Jaraxxus! You smell like a leper gnome! I knew it! So a podcast about Hearthstone and Battlegrounds. This is The Angry Chicken!
Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Angry Chicken. I'm your host, Jocelyn, and joining me, as always, is my co-host, Ridiculous Hat. Hello, Hat. How has your week been treating you?
Wakanda.
Okay, sorry, I should have said, how has your Hearthstone week been treating you?
Oh, yeah. I think I played that game. I think I did. My week has been, for those that don't know, I work in a movie theater. We've had a busy week, though. All with the business was fine, but then my building flooded on Saturday, which was unpleasant.
Wait, your work building or your home building?
Yeah, work. No work.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, not okay. That still sucks, but
yeah.
On a scale of work to home.
Burst, ripped down 9 floors, so that was unpleasant.
Oof.
Yeah, it was a very damp day, but Hearthstone's fun right now, and still, I mean, I don't know about you, I'm more looking at the future than the present. Still logging in, clearing my dailies and all that, but I am much more focused on the future than present. Format's fine, but I want to play with the new stuff, which comes in
soon.
3 weeks?
Yeah, only a few
3 weeks. Yeah, it's almost here.
I have been playing because I absolutely love the Jaina Death Knight, Frost Lich Jaina, and making all my elementals have lifesteal. Like, I cannot lose with that deck because I just cannot die. It's wonderful.
I never really put this together. Are you a mage person?
I am a mage person. Yes, I like mage. Was my second class to gold. No, third. Sorry, third. I went hunter, paladin, mage.
Okay. I realize now that a lot of the decks you talk about liking and having fun and playing are mage. And it's like, just wait a minute. Wait a minute.
Yes, I am actually a dirty mage player. I'm sorry.
No, you seem fairly hygienic. Like it's fine.
Why, thank you.
Yeah. I think that's a compliment. I mean, I guess like dirty is an insult, but like hygienic is more a standard.
There's something about playing standard something joke here.
There's a joke. Well, if you were on a date with someone, you said, well, you look very hygienic today. How much longer would that day last?
Yeah, that's true.
Like, it's not an insult, but I don't know if it's a compliment, at least not one that I'd want to get. Anyways, this is a digression. Doesn't matter. You know who I bet is very hygienic is our wonderful patrons.
Yes, over at patreon.com/TAC. We are supported by those epic patrons, and you can become one by going to patreon.com/TAC. If you become a TAC patron, you get instant access to our amazing Discord server, and, every once in a while, a super cool extra bonus podcast episode a little bit earlier than everybody else. Speaking of that super awesome bonus episode, we did do a Marvel Snap episode. It's been up for patrons for a couple of weeks now, but we just did put it on the main feed. So if you're into Marvel Snap, go and check that out. We had a lot of fun. All I want to do is talk more about that, but we have both said we are not starting another podcast, and we're going to stick to it until we change our minds next week.
Next week's American Thanksgiving, maybe week after.
Maybe the week after. All right, then. Wanted to say a very special thank you this week to Ardrick. Thank you so much for heading on over to patreon.com/TAC to support the show. Now, let's just jump right into it. Let's start talking about some cards.
Good news, everyone!
So we got some more cards in the last week, and this is the first we've kind of started to see the bundling of cards that aren't Death Knight cards. So we have a couple of neutrals to talk about, mainly just like legendaries, because some of these legendaries are crazy cuckoo bananas, and I couldn't like just let it go without talking about this first one specifically. So Bone Lord Frost Whisper is a neutral 6-mana 6/6 undead minion with a death rattle that reads, for the rest of the game, your first card each turn costs 0. You die in 3 turns. What a twist!
There's a lot going on here. Yeah, so it's a death rattle, not a battle cry.
Yep.
If you double it somehow, you die after 3 turns twice. You don't get 6 turns. You just you die, and then if you're still alive, somehow you die again. Which shouldn't really come up that much, but whatever. And so if you play this on your turn and then you kill it, you obviously don't get a discount. It's like Caligos. It has to either die on your opponent's turn, or it has to die on your turn without you playing any cards. So if you can trade into something with it. And I imagine the way it works is that it's after you press end turn 3 times. So it's like if it dies during your current turn, then you press end turn, that's 1. If it dies on their turn, you take your turn, you have a 0-mana card, you press end turn, that's 1. And so it's after 3 end turn presses. That'd be my guess. Not informed, but my guess.
Yeah, I think that sounds right to me too. I'm sure we'll get corrected in chat room should that not be the case. But yeah, I just thought like I read this card and I was like, no, that can't be what they mean. But
it's wacky.
It's such a powerful effect. And like, so Caligos, the effect of the first spell you play this turn is 0 mana, was incredibly powerful. And this doesn't even restrict you to a type of card. It's literally, you can play anything you want and it's free, and then you still get the rest of your turn, so the 7, 8, 9 mana you have, but then you super die. Like no take backsies.
Yeah, you are dead. That is just someone. If you want to make sure games end sooner, this will get you there one way or another. It's gonna happen. The game will be over 3 turns after this dies.
Which, I mean, for people who do really like short games or don't want to sit around and play against like a Blood DK that wants to sit there for 45 minutes, just play Bone Lord and then you'll die. Easy peasy.
Yeah. Or, I mean, ideally, I think if you play this, you want them to die, but like you're gonna get to move on pretty soon.
Yeah,
one way
exactly.
Or another.
One way or the other. And so it is a death rattle. So it is the kind of thing that like has to die for this effect to start happening. You probably want the effect as opposed to the 6/6, but if it lives, then you've just got a 6/6 you can whack them in the face with. That also might end the game pretty quick.
Yep. And things that normally don't cost 0 that are good when they cost 0.
Like
Denathrius.
Yeah, We are gonna talk about Denathrius later on tonight.
Multiple times today.
Yeah,
it's gonna come up a lot.
It is.
Yeah,
it
just
is.
like standard. Anyways, but yeah, you can play any number of things. A carryable hero or something. This won't be around for Frostless Jaina, but it would be fun if you could have a 0-mana Frostless Jaina. But you got to play something that decides the game quickly in your favor, because you don't really have time to wait here. So you need the things you play off this to be very impactful. It is a very difficult text box to evaluate because it does depend on, can I kill people from hand or rapidly with this kind of mana advantage? And there are some, like the Jailer, I think, is a card that stands out to me as something that's probably pretty good at ending games quickly if you get him down on turn 7.
I can get behind that plan. I feel like you basically just like build your deck out of a few cards on the low end, but then you basically go 6 and then just like 10 mana, like bomb, 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 bomb. Like you want to, I feel like you build this deck to take advantage of this effect, and you can't do anything else, because if you pull a card out that is useless at 0 mana and not killing your opponent and not some giant bomb they can't deal with, then like you don't have the turn time to fix that problem. Like those 3 draws are going to be so important.
It's a somewhat elegant way to give people some power if they want to work for it, because if you want to wait to have the cards that you need in your hand, if you build a deck that has a lot of answers or a slower strategy that needs a few different combo pieces, and then you wait till you get them, you play Frost Whisper, you're slowing yourself down and saying you really have to do this on time, and you're vulnerable to the significant volume of disruption that's in the format right now with 6-mana Theatar, with Patchwork, with Mutinous, whatever. But if you build a really dense deck, then you have a 6-mana 6/6 with no taunt that you're playing on turn 6 with not a lot of early game, and you can just get smacked around. Like you have to not be super vulnerable to whatever they're going to do, because the turn you play this, you're just keeping the shields down.
Yeah.
Just Frost Whisper go. So I think there's some good tension here, and it's a spooky text box, but it takes some work to set this up, and I'm not immediately sure what the payoff is. And I think that's probably a good place to be for this kind of power.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's okay to have a difficult to pull off combo, because you wouldn't want, especially because it's a neutral, you don't want this to be the kind of card that everyone is putting in their deck. And, you know, like you don't want this to define the format. But I think if there's 1 or 2 classes that can do some really cool stuff with it, that's the kind of, you know, interesting neutral design that I want to see. So I think this is going to be really interesting. And yeah, I think I couldn't let this episode go by without specifically talking about this card, because it's bonkers completely.
It's a crazy text box. Yeah, they've had a few of those. I will say my biggest concern, we're going to talk about Denathrius again already. That's 2. We're going to keep a Denathrius count, is if it pulls out Kael'thas. If it just is for pulling out 0-mana Kael'thas's and then we brand Denny, then that is 3 mana to brand Denathrius, because your Kael'thas costs 0, your brand costs 3, your Denathrius costs 0. I don't want that. So I hope that we can find something more creative to do, or that's not good enough. Because if that is the thing that people do to enable last sets cards, then I'm hopeful that Denathrius gets changed if he's seen super frequently in the new expansion.
Yeah. I think, yeah, you know what? We're going to save our Denathrius talk. We're going to save it. I promise we will save it. We have an email. We will save it. We're going to
bottle up our daddy issues. That's what we're going to do.
Save it for the end of the show. But yeah, so Astalor Bloodsworn is the next neutral legendary I want to talk about. It's a 2-mana 2/2. With a battle cry that reads, add Astalor the Protector to your hand. And this is one of the new Mana Thirst cards. So Mana Thirst 4 deal 2 damage. So the Protector, so the next version up, is a 5-mana 5/5. Add the Flamebringer to your hand. Mana Thirst, gain 5 armor. So these are more powerful. He is a Blood Knight, and so they get more powerful, taking advantage of those mana, like having more mana available to you. Yeah, the Sunwell. So then the Flamebringer is like the final iteration. Battle cry, deal 8 damage, randomly split between all enemies. Mana Thirst 10, deal 8 more. So this is giving me like the Phoenix vibes. And now I'm totally blanking on the name of the card, but the one that
Pyros.
Yeah, Pyros. That's it. Pyros vibes.
Or Build a Snowman is the same idea.
Yeah. Except I never get Build a Snowman off, and I'm so sad because there's an achievement for that, and no one will ever let me build my freaking snowman.
So, do you want to build a snowman?
I do want to build a snowman hat. And I could today. There's like 10 centimeters of 4 inches of snow on the ground.
You don't have to correct your units.
I'm doing it for your and most of the listeners' benefit.
They can Google what a centimeter is. We learned that in school. It's okay. There's a bunch of snow up there in Canada. If it's Canadian only snow, you can measure in centimeters. That's a rule. I'm making that rule.
Yeah. So anyways, I could build a snowman today, should I wish to. But not in Hearthstone, apparently, because everyone keeps killing them, especially the little one.
Aw.
Yeah.
Now I'm sad.
Right?
Anyways, we should talk about Mana Thirst a little bit because it's a little funky. So Mana Thirst, it's Mana Thirst, a number, and a colon. If you watch the Ronki animation reveal video, which you should because it's really, really funny, as usual, you can basically see how Mana Thirst works. If you don't have the number of crystals in the parentheses, you take a Sharpie and you're right over all the Mana Thirst text. It doesn't happen. But it's important to note, Mana Thirst is typically not a battle cry. So Astalor Bloodsworn, the base copy. Battle cry, add Astalor the Protector to your hand. Mana Thirst 4, deal 2 damage. If you play Bran Astalor on 5, you get 2 Protectors, but you only deal 2 damage a single time because the Mana Thirst is a separate ability. There is an exception.
Of course.
If a card says instead, that's the magic word. If it says instead, the battle cry is replaced by the bigger battle cry, you do double that one. So like there's a healer card, Sunwell Clergy, where it's heal all friendly characters for 3, Mana Thirst 6, I think, heal them all for 6 instead. Because it says instead, you heal for 6 twice because it's taking the battle cry and replacing it with a new one. But usually, if you brand a Mana Thirst card, unless it says instead, you will not double the Mana Thirst portion.
So again, the Mana Thirst is you don't have to spend that mana, but do you have to have all like 4? So this one is a Mana Thirst 4 in its smallest iteration. Do you have to have those 4 mana crystals like full when you play the card? Okay, you just have to have
but they
those
have to be permanent.
Right, okay.
Yeah, if you're on turn 3 and you coin this card out, it has Mana Thirst 4, you coin it out, the Mana Thirst does not go off because you don't have 4 crystals.
Right.
Temporary ones don't count.
Okay.
It has to be 4 permanent crystals, but once you have 4 total crystals...
But if I hero power and spend 2 and then play Astalor, his Mana Thirst will go off because I have 4 crystals.
Yes. Does not care about what's in the crystals.
Okay.
Well, you'd think he'd want to drink them, but
right?
No.
He's so thirsty.
I guess he's okay with the empty crystals. We're not going to dive into the lore here. I don't know how that works, but if you have that number of crystals, then it works. It's really just the number after the slash in the corner.
Yeah.
As long as that number and this number are the same or bigger, then you're fine.
I really like. I don't know how much he'll actually see play, but I thought it was interesting design because it did remind me of Pyros, and because it does use the new keyword specifically, and we haven't seen too many things. Like all the reveals so far have been very focused on Death Knight stuff. We've seen some Mana Thirsty cards, but mostly like this is the first like big one that I noticed anyways that actually really takes advantage of this and multiple times, right? Because you start with a 4 and then what is it, 7? Yeah, 4, 7, and then 10. So you can play them earlier, but they get more powerful if you hang on to them for a couple turns. So what's your take on Mana Thirst? Like if I have an 8 mana 8/8, do I want to that deals 8 damage that basically has a built-in Avenging Wrath? Do I want to hang on to that for the extra 2 turns to get 16 damage, or is it probably better to just play it on 8 and not take advantage of the thirsty Blood Knight?
It depends. The magic word. It's going to be contextual. So I think usually speaking, when we look at a card like this, you include this in your deck if you need a threat and you have a bunch of mana and you have a bunch of time. So on the Death Knight show match screen today, which we're going to talk about a bunch in the next little bit, we saw this a ton, especially in the Blood DK decks, because they don't have a lot of good ways to end games, but they do have time. So Astalor gives you 3 different things to do. If you brand it gives you a lot more. Those decks are going to wait because they really want the extra damage because they need a way to end the game. And they have plenty of ways to get the game to that point. If you're a druid, a ramp druid, for example, and you have the spare mana on turn 2, just run this guy out there. You'll probably get more crystals along the way, but you want to take advantage if you're against a matchup that's maybe more aggressive. You just want to take advantage of the time that you have, of the card that you have, and just play these things on curve so that you can contest, so that you can do something. But if you're in a slower matchup, you can hold it. The power and the flexibility here is that you can do what is best for you given the game state, and players typically they see value and don't want to leave it on the table. But if you end the game with this in your hand and you being dead, then it has no value because a card in your hand when you lose it does not have any value. So you can make that choice based on how much pressure the opponent is putting on you, how much time you have to end the game. If they play a Bone Lord Frost Whisper, I'm playing that 8 mana 8/8 on 8
Right.
because I know that I don't have a lot of time, or hopefully they don't have a lot of time, or both.
Well, yeah, nobody does. It's 3 turns and busts. So
Yes.
But yeah, so I thought that this was some really cool design, and then we would be remiss if we did not mention. Where did it go? It's up here. So there it is. The Foul Egg. It is this expansion's egg. It's a 1 mana 0/2 Death Rattle summon an undead chicken. Oh no, it doesn't. Wait, where's the chicken?
Where's the token?
Where's the token?
This is some bullshit.
I'm so
That's what
upset
this
right
is.
now. I'm a very angry chicken.
Okay, so there's I found a Twitter link. It's called Foul. It's with the joke and the spelling that you can probably figure out. And it's
There we
foul.
go.
Foul.
Hat
Yes.
saves the day. I do love that it still has some feathers. I thought he was going to be all skeleton, which also would have been acceptable and hilarious. So I'm on board with either design. But yeah, so it is a 3/3 undead beast. So another one of these dual minion type cards that we're seeing thanks to the new expansion. So yeah, we're getting an egg. Do you think we're going to see undead egg decks?
I don't know if you can really make an egg deck, but with Grimoire of Sacrifice around, I'll never count out eggs. Like it's just Warlock in general is pretty good at that, and we have seen some of the Shaman cards are pretty Death Rattle focused.
Yes.
Might be some way to take advantage of that. If you use minion buffs in Paladin, which we've also seen, you might be able to take advantage of that. There are a lot of different ways to make an egg. There's a saying there, right?
Maybe something about
know.
cracking eggs to make some. I can't do something without breaking some eggs. I don't know. There's something in
My
there.
brain's not functional this week, but I feel like there is a well-known like egg-related platitude.
Fair. But yeah, I mean, like all chicken related
Yeah,
jokes
make an omelet
aside.
without breaking a few eggs.
There
That's
you
it.
go.
That's the one. Yeah.
There's more than one way to skin an egg. Love it. Thank you, Destorn. But yeah, I mean, it like all chicken related reasons aside, I mean, you're paying 1 mana for 3/5 in stats. If you are a deck that can buff minions or take like advantage of death rattles and or undeads and or beasts, that's a lot of and ors. I feel like we might actually be seeing some eggs.
It's possible.
It's possible.
I'm glad we brought this up.
Yeah.
You didn't even want to mention this card.
I just
Thought it was just fan service. You know what? We're here for the fans. That's what we are here for.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about Blood DK, because when we did our show last week, we hadn't seen any of the we hadn't seen very many of the Blood DK cards. I think we had 2 or 3 Blood DK cards.
We had a few, but the way that they did the reveals, our show was the day before all the blood reveals.
Yeah.
We'd seen the Frost and the
and
Unholy
Unholy,
ones,
yeah.
and yeah, we'd seen most of them, but we hadn't seen at least the 4 that we have on the screen here: Alexander's Mograine, Soul Stealer, Bone Guard Commander, and Soul Breaker. We had a few of the core ones and a few of the path ones, but only 3 from the expansion, I believe.
Yeah, I think we'd seen Vampiric Blood, because I remember talking about the 3 rune blood card specifically. But I think, yeah, this is the one I wanted to start off with tonight, is Alexandros Mograine, who is a 7 mana 7/7, a 3 blood rune card. So this is for blood DKs only, unless you somehow discover it in one of the other DK decks. Battle cry: for the rest of the game, deal 3 damage to your opponent at the end of your turns. If you brand this, is it 6? Okay.
It's 3 twice, so yes.
It is 3. Okay. I didn't know if it was 3 twice or if it would just overwrite the first 3 with the next 3.
Nope. It's
so it's additive.
two triggers. Well, it gives you another end of turn trigger that deals 3. You end up with 2 of those. The same way that, like, yeah, if you brand a quest reward or whatever,
Right.
same kind of thing. So yeah, if you're against a Cariel, they will take 2 twice because it's 3 divided by 2 rounded up,
which is nice.
Yeah. So this was originally revealed as a 3/7, and then it was posted that it was a 7/7, 7-mana 7/7. What is your thought on this card? How did you react to this text box when you saw it?
Mixed.
Okay.
So, like, initial gut reaction is like, I don't like things I can't do anything about. So just like, even if I kill this out, like, it's not an aura effect, it's a battle cry. So it happens, and even if you deal with the 7/7, it's still going to keep happening for the whole rest of the game. And that kind of makes me feel a little bleh. But that being said, it is 3 damage. Now, 6 damage obviously is a twice as fast clock. 3 damage is not necessarily the end of the world. I prefer something like this than like curses, you know, that ramp up. Like, this isn't like 3, 4, 5, 6, you know, whatever. And 3 a turn, I think, is a reasonable clock. But the only thing, like, but you don't have to do anything for it, right? You have to play a 7-mana 7/7. But then, like, you don't have any other mana cost or, you know, card debt that you have to pay, or, you know, it's just a thing that happens. I'm just like, I don't know. So, like, it makes me feel bad, but I don't know if that means it's OP and unbalanced.
Look at you with the nuance.
Right?
I mean, it's because the initial impression of this text box is like, it's a quest reward that you don't have to do a quest for, or what the hell. But, like, if you think about how long this takes to do things, it takes a while, right? This is a Firelands Portal or a Blaze Caller after about 2 turns. Deals 6 damage, Blaze Caller equivalent. It's good. That's a good thing to do, but keep in mind, you're in Triple Blood. You have no other way to end games.
Yeah.
If the game goes till turn 9, it is a 7-mana 7/7 that deals 6 to the enemy's face. It's a decent card, but it's not one that needs to be nerfed. If the game goes longer than that, I'm assuming the other player is okay with it going longer too, because if you're still there past turn 10 or so, you both got to be playing long game decks, because the average length of a Hearthstone game is around 8-9 turns.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so if you
it's
both
like,
want to be there, if you're a priest, you just hero power, just 1 damage a turn. Like, is that a big deal?
yeah, I guess the big deal or whatever, like, you have that healing hero power counterplay always available to you, but then you also have 8 mana a turn, right?
Sure. You can make the call as to what you want to do. I think that people will really enjoy playing with this card. And I think that anyone that feels like, if you feel like you're losing to this card, you're probably losing to the Death Knight not being dead and you running out of stuff.
Mm.
And this is a symptom of that. And it's a way for the game to actually wind down after they run you out of stuff, so you don't just have to wait for them to do nothing for a while. But it's not a defensive card. And in the context of Triple Blood, there's not a lot of pressure going on there. So this only deals a lot of damage if the game takes forever. And if the game takes forever, then you probably lost it before.
In other ways, yeah, before it was. Yeah. You didn't lose because of this. It's like, mercifully, the game is over because of this card. And I think so. The 3 blood rune deck building condition, I think, is a really important one to point out, because it's not one that we're used to talking about when evaluating cards. I think we, you know, at least me, I very much keep looking at these cards going, oh man, Death Knight's so powerful. And that's like, wait, one very specific Death Knight, and in this case it's Triple Blood, which means it's going to be a very control-y deck, and there's, you know, all of these restrictions and everything else. Like, you can't do this in the Frost Mage or Frost Death Knight.
Can't do it neither.
Can't do it in Frost Mage either. Yeah. But yeah, it's a very specific deck that this goes into, and I think it really showcases the strength of this mechanic, because they can make powerful cards knowing that they'll only be played in one very specific type of deck, except for those like super edge case scenarios where you generate it somehow. But I think I'm also okay with that happening too. Like, this is just a potential high roll. If the deck that you're playing that discovers this can even figure out a time to play it within your normal, you know, whatever your deck is trying to do. So it's the kind of thing that, like, yes, sometimes people will high roll into this and get to play it. Rogues too. Yeah, rogues steal everything. So everything is an asterisk.
I reserve
rogue
the right
card.
to be.
Yeah.
I reserve the right to be salty if this gets generated and shadow stepped a couple times. Like, if that happens to you, you don't have to be happy about it. You're allowed to be mad about it.
But I mean, I expect the number of times that's going to happen to be extremely minimal, to the point that I'm expecting to see it happen on ladder and go, oh, wow, that was cool. Because I know the next rogue I see is probably not going to get this. So, you know, like, it's not the kind of thing that's going to be consistent in any way except in a triple blood death knight. And I think that that is okay then, and balanced, because like you said, they don't have access to a whole lot of other cards, and all of the burn requires at least one of the other runes, and you can't build a deck that has burn and something like this in it as well. So I think I really like the rune deck building restrictions, because it lets them do powerful, fun stuff like this without breaking the class on release. So I think this is, again, initial thought was, oh, I don't like this, but then the more I thought about it, I'm like, oh, but it's actually probably fine.
And the players that like grinding their opponents into dust, the people that live for this kind of control effect, this is an excellent design, because they want the game to go on longer. But if you are the kind of player that likes attrition and wait it out, every single end of turn trigger where you see the sword swipe across them, just a little shot of happiness right in the center of your control player brain. You just get to see visually them being ground down. So the people that want to do this sort of thing, this is exactly the way to do it. But also, I don't think that it's going to warp the meta or be problematic in terms of win rate or play pattern.
Mm-hmm.
So just rewarding the people that like this without really punishing the people that don't all that much.
Yep. I think that's a fair and balanced assessment.
Look at us.
I know,
fair
right?
and balanced.
I had another card here that I don't see, and it might be maybe
because it's not in the expansion.
Path of Arthas?
Yes.
Okay.
I believe it is a path card, yes.
Oh my god. There it is.
There it is.
Blood tap. So this is a 2-mana shadow spell. Give all minions in your hand +1/+1, or spend 3 corpses, or I guess, and spend 3 corpses to give them +1/+1 more. So blood DK hand buff card. Yay or nay?
So there are a few of these. There are a few like hand buffy cards. Now, this is very good on rate, right? Like, this is a conditioning that you can play before that. Darkfall and Neophyte as well is a 3-mana single rune 2/5 battlecry, spend 2 corpses to give all minions in your hand +2 attack. Like, I think this card is very, very good. And Blood Tap, it's a double rune card, so it's a little harder to use, but the rate is really strong on it if your hand is full of minions. It's also a direction that we have not seen explored as much with Blood, because it's not immediately obvious. And Blood Tap being double blood confused me a bit, because in single blood, you throw it with double unholy and you're in business. I'm guessing they wanted that to be a little tougher to do, because a conditioning for +2/+2 on turn 2 would be probably too much, right?
Yeah, I was going to say, I feel like something that could buff a double unholy hand, because unholy, if you guys don't remember, unholy is the Death Knight version that really tries to go after like the minion based, corpse based type stuff. It's very board floody and everything else. So if this only had 1 blood rune and you could, you know, buff up a 2 rune unholy hand, I feel like that would be way too powerful. And again, we're coming back to these rune conditions where they can make a more powerful effect because it's in a, mostly blood deck. Like, we're leaning in the blood direction, not like in the control, in the, maybe I want to give my mid to late game minions an extra couple of attack and health. We're kind of leaning in that direction, as opposed to like, I'm going to flood the board with stuff really early when +2/+2 makes a really big impactful difference. So I think that, that again, we're coming back to that rune deck building restriction really coming into play and allowing them to make powerful cards, because you can't really pair those really powerful unholy cards with the really powerful blood cards. So I like this.
I think this is going to be more of a deck building challenge in a way that this isn't the kind of thing that you can just throw together a deck from scrolling through the spoilers and know what it looks like without clicking through a bunch of cards. I do expect this will not get paired with Frost very much. This is definitely a single unholy rune. Yeah. But I don't know how this deck is going to look. And I think it's interesting that they can give us this package that encourages us to go click around without it being immediately obvious how that's going to look or play, or if it's going to work at all, which I'm not sure it will be. But the rate here, if you get it to work, we know conditioning at +2/+2 is a good card. We know that. So we haven't seen it in a little while because Warrior hasn't really been able to take advantage of that. Will DK be better at it, and will this come online sooner?
Yeah, I feel like the 3 corpses, again, that really having that one rune available to throw some of the single unholy cards in kind of allows you to get some corpses earlier than maybe a triple blood deck would traditionally be, because again, you have your hero power to generate corpses as a Death Knight, but you don't necessarily have a lot of corpse generation if you're one of the two one of the two classes. If you're blood or frost, you don't necessarily have that early game corpse generation the same way that unholy does. So yeah, it's they are going to make a lot of very interesting potential combinations, and I think some of them are going to be good and some of them are going to be bad. And I think the more things you try to cram into one deck, the worse it's going to be, which I think is pretty good. Like the one blood, one frost, one unholy is probably shite, and we should not be doing that.
Yeah, it's choices, right?
Yes, choices.
You make clear choices. You can really identify what you're choosing to do and not do, and you can pretty clearly feel how it impacts your game when you go and play. That's important, and it's relevant and helpful to have that in the game in a clear way of how do my decisions impact my results, and knowing how that happens is really, really important for giving players the feeling of agency. And the rune system very clearly has that before you play a single game. You know what your decisions are, and then when you get into the game, say, man, I wish I had that second unholy rune so I could play this other card that I had to scroll past. Then you get to decide, like, how far into hand buff do I want to be? Is this a trap? Is this blood trap? Blood trap, blood tap. You're not going to give me anything.
Well, I mean, come on, Hat. You could do better than that.
Yeah, I don't know. It seems to segue so nice with my point.
Are there any other blood cards or Death Knight cards that you want to chat about before we move on and talk about some Shaman, Warlock, Paladin things?
Yeah, there's one. Sire Denathrius. It's
not a blood card.
So it infuses. It's blood adjacent, right? It's anima.
Yeah, I mean it is red anima.
So today and tomorrow there was a Death Knight exhibition show match. 8 hours today, 8 hours tomorrow. They just finished long cast. Garrett and Slissa are casting it. We know them. They're cool. Go watch it. Go cheer in the chat. Yay, Garrett and Slissa, yay. You have to type that out. You can use.
Well, Slissa actually has an emote that does this, so just get her Slissa hype emote going.
It's audio listeners. Joss was putting her arms over her head and waving them back and forth.
Like I just don't care.
You can't. Exactly. She definitely looked pretty indifferent. So we watched 8 hours of Death Knight gameplay today. Well, I mean, we didn't sit here and watch it for 8 hours. Josh had to work. I had some stuff going on. But I caught some of it. You caught some of it. I think we can safely say this is not Day 1 Demon Hunter. It's not. It's super not. The cards are good. This is not Day 1 Demon Hunter. And if you were there, you know what that was like. This ain't that. We're going to be fine. For those that weren't there, oh boy, it was something. So, but I will say the games were on the slower side. They were a little grindier. A big part of that is the format. So there were 3 different teams: Team Blood, Team Frost, Team Unholy. There were 4 players per team. 1 player had to be triple of that rune. 1 player had to be 2 of that rune, Frost. 2 of that rune, 1 of the others. The third one had to be 2 of that rune, and the other.
The other, yep.
Like, yep.
So like 2 unholy, 1 blood, 2 unholy, 1 frost.
Correct. Yep. And then the 4th was the wild card. They could just, as long as they had at least 1, they could do whatever they wanted. So the games were slower and grindier because, first of all, it's only Death Knights. Second of all, you'd probably never play an aggro deck in this format because you know at least half of your opponents are going to be blood DKs, and that's not fun. So we really didn't see a lot of aggressive stuff going on.
Mm-hmm.
In the tournament, Frost and Unholy are neck and neck. Frost is ahead by 1 point. The Frost players, all 4 of them, are on the leaderboard up to in 1st through 7th place. I think they're 1st, 3rd, 4th, and 7th. Before a single blood player. The bottom 5 is blood, unholy, blood. But again, there's no aggro to feast on, so blood underperforms. Those games also go for a while. The games took a bit, but you know, it's really dynamic and interesting gameplay. It's very difficult to summarize 8 hours of play here, other than I want to go play some Death Knight now because it looked fun. I don't know about you,
which is
but
the whole point of
really
these show matches, right? Is to get you excited about the next expansion, to, you know, show off what's coming and to make you want to play. So I think, you know, tick, 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 they did what they wanted to do. And I think it is just, it's important, I think, to see how the cards play and to want to go play with them while remembering that this is Death Knight versus Death Knight versus Death Knight with very specific restrictions on the decks that they're building. And yeah, there did not seem to be a restriction that was don't play Denathrius, though, or Theatar. We saw both of those today. But we're going to talk about that later. Again,
we are.
But yeah, I think it's really important to remember / understand that that's not what ladder is going to look like, because I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people testing things out and playing DKs on. I keep wanting to say Demon Hunters, and that's wrong. These are Death Knights. So people are going to want to play Death Knights on day 1. But there's, you know, still the 10 other classes to have some fun with as well. So the ladder is not going to be just this show match. This is just showing us, you know, the different ways that DKs can play.
You almost did it again. I heard it.
I know. I know. And it
Yeah.
doesn't help.
It's very hard to do.
Like, and in the show notes, there's a note that says cards look good and not DH level broken. And that is right in the middle of my sight line right now. So yeah.
So I will also point out a couple other things, though. First of all, Meaty had a turn with Triple Frost where he dealt 23 damage on turn 8. I liked that turn. I would like to do that. So
which
there's
is what
some power there.
What Frost is meant to do, right? Like, Frost is supposed to be very quick and very burny, but if they, like, their weakness, I would think, would be if they don't, you know, draw their stuff quickly enough, or, you know, like, they're gonna have some drawbacks that they can brick. Like it's almost like feels kind of like an aggro spell deck as opposed to an aggro minion deck, which I kind of
tempo
like.
mage, like Mana Worm Tempo Mage. Yeah. Yep. I love Mana Worm Tempo Mage. I love Miracle Rogue, where you hit him with the Eviscerate in turn 5. Like, oh yeah, that's I'm so here for it. We're gonna, if we get invited back to Theory Crafting, that's the first deck I'm playing is Triple Frost. If we don't, then the first deck I'm playing on day 1, Triple Frost.
But Triple Frost will be played.
I will say there were also a couple issues that we want to allude to. First of all, the Scourge, I think the name of the card is the Scourge, the 9 mana Unholy Legendary that fills your board with random undead,
Correct.
and the Sunwell. were both played in a lot of decks. And I don't know if it was intentionally to make a bunch of new stuff that we hadn't seen yet, but I was surprised that they were okay with the whole set being in there because a lot of cards were leaked today. 17 unrevealed cards were leaked today.
Yeah, do we call it a leak? If it's on the official
prematurely
Hearthstone,
revealed.
I get, yeah, maybe. Never mind. That was going places. I am pulling it back. So I think
appreciate
that, like,
your professionalism.
If it's on
don't want that
the
to just squirt out there. What?
If it's something on the official Play Hearthstone show match, they had to anticipate that some cards were going to be shown that maybe potentially had not yet been released. And I think that it's probably better, or at least expected. Like, I don't know. I think it's just like, it's another marketing tool. It's another bonus to doing a show match, I would think.
Yeah, I don't think that they're sitting there in office like, we had no idea people would generate cards in Hearthstone. Like, I assume
How
that
dare
they were aware. Yeah. And Celestlon in chat. Hi, Celestlon. Thanks for being here. Saying that because the reveals are package based, a card here or there out of context didn't feel like a huge deal to them, that they were okay with the risk. And I think that's a great point that you made about it's kind of a bonus to tuning in, is that you get to see these things, except they get instantly posted on the news sites, whatever, so you don't even have to tune in. But I don't know how I would feel if I was one of the creators that went to reveal these cards and a couple of them have already been seen, because I know that some of these, I'm not going to speak specifics, but there are a few packages that I can pick out of the cards that were prematurely revealed. And you can tell that a couple of those are going to be revealed together. And so if someone got 4 cards to show off and then 2 of them dropped today, like, I don't know how I would feel about that as the creator, but it probably wouldn't be a great feeling. It'd probably be a more negative one.
I think personally, and again, this is my own opinion, so, like, other creators may vary, but I feel like
after this, I'm going to ask you for other people's opinions.
Thank you. But yeah, I feel like because of the way they're doing reveals this season, with things being kind of a package deal, even if you can guess what the theme is from, 1 or 2 cards that are seen in a show match like this, I think that I would still be excited, because I think it just builds up excitement for my reveal, because I know I'm going to get to reveal, 3 to 5 cards, right? And if a couple are leaked, people could just then look at my reveal and be like, oh my God, this is the hand buff reveal, or this is the, the death rattle unholy something, whatever, like it's building hype. It's like a teaser, because you're getting those cards totally out of context, which is like every other reveal we've ever had. And creators have had like 1 card at a time, right? So this way, it's like we always like had this anticipation and really wanted to know what the support would be like when we would see super cool and powerful cards. So now you get to be the creator that talks about the support for the cool card that got, leaked in the show match. Like, I think I would be totally fine with this. Like, I'm down. I think from a creator perspective, I would be excited that my reveal was teased almost.
You convinced me. That was very persuasive.
No, thank you.
I like that framing a lot. Well, yeah, because now the comparison that you have made in my head, given the week that I've just had, is like the playing the Scourge and seeing a card we haven't seen before is like the after credit scene in a Marvel movie, and then you get to show the movie when you're the creator, and people are like, "Oh, I remember that guy." Okay, you convinced me. You know what? I'd be happy too.
Yeah.
Okay, I see it.
Yeah. I mean, I totally get the other perspective of like, this was my thing, but it's not the only thing anymore, right? Like, it used to be you had a card, and there were times where your 1 card was leaked through whatever, nefarious means, and then your reveal was spoiled. But I think when creators are getting to reveal a package, it lessens that sting a little bit. So Yeah, I don't know. I think it's really cool. So I'm glad that they took the risk, put it that way. I wouldn't have wanted to see like DK cards totally removed from their environment. Like, we already have them removed from ladder in that we're only seeing Death Knights playing Death Knights. So I wouldn't have wanted it like restricted even further to only have currently revealed, like some build of Hearthstone which only had the currently revealed cards available to be generated and stuff. Like, people want to see these cards in the environment they're going to be played, and they want to see how powerful the Scourge can be, right? You don't want to, have the Scourge only summon a couple of little not so great minions because most of the set hasn't been revealed yet, right? So I think this was the right call in my personal opinion.
I think your opinion is the correct one. I like yours, so I'm going to take that one and get rid of mine.
Perfect.
Yeah. However, I think we can share one final opinion. Blizzard, please hire better moderators for your Twitch chat. It was bad. People were being moderated for talking about like player skill, I guess. Like there was someone that tweeted they got banned for saying they didn't like Meaty's deck.
I saw that ban happen, and I was like, whoa, okay.
But then also, anytime a woman was on stream, it was
a free for all. Well,
Twitch chat.
I don't necessarily want to say a free for all, because there were quite a few times where I would see so and so has been banned before I even saw messages. So like, I know that there were some people trying to keep up, but like, I don't know. Think ahead a little more next time. Ban more words. Time out more people. I don't know. I just it was it was, as it always is, pretty terrible to women. So
other games have figured this out, so there must be something that they're doing that we're not doing it, and I would like to do the good thing.
Yeah.
Yep. If you go to a Valorant stream or whatever, like, that chat is well curated, and they have 40,000 people watching. I want more like that. It's not easy, but I think it's important for inclusivity. Which, when you're trying to get people into the game, you don't want the chat to keep them from being able to engage. And
which it absolutely does. I mean, this has been a problem since Hearthstone and Twitch were a thing, right? Like, this is not a new problem.
Yeah.
And I don't engage at all in any chats that have to do with Hearthstone esports or these show matches or anything else. Like, I just sit and lurk, and most of the time I don't even have chat open because I don't want to see that stuff, and that doesn't feel great. So
yep. Though this time around, everyone was allowed to stream their own perspective as well in their individual channels. As Dazzle Lauren's mentioning in the chat, I went to a couple of them. I went to Cantaloupe's chat. He was having a good time. And that's a much different experience. Smaller. The streamer gets to curate them themselves. It's nice vibe, and I'm glad they were able to do that, because you could see everybody's perspective, everybody's conversation, everybody's local community, in addition to the main cast. So I thought that was really fun.
I did find it kind of funny that it seemed like a lot of viewers didn't realize that people were streaming to their own chats, because obviously they're streaming, so they're sitting there talking to chat room, talking through their plays and whatever. And like, the main Hearthstone channel was like, who are they talking to? What is going on right now? Like, what is happening? It's like they're talking to their chat room, guys. Calm down.
Every big Hearthstone streamer is crazy. They talk to themselves very, very vocally and animatedly.
Yeah, animatedly.
All right. Word? Well, that's a word.
It is now. Let's talk. Okay, first I need to get out of Path of Arthas and back into March of the Lich King, because we're not gonna talk about the reveals where we've only seen like one card. We're gonna talk about the packages. So let's talk about Shaman first, because we had kind of alluded to this one a couple times tonight. We've seen quite a few, 6 Shaman cards, including the legendary, which is an undead Murloc, which is super fun. So Rotgill is a 5-mana 3/6 undead Murloc, has a battle cry: give your other minions death rattle, give your minions +1/+1. And this is kind of a theme that we're going to see through Shaman, is granting death rattles to your minions, which then kind of synergizes with the Scourge Troll, which is a 1-mana 1/3 undead. Death rattles given to this minion trigger twice. So there's some kind of cool death rattle synergy-ness there. And yeah, I think this is I really like this package reveal stuff, because we've got Rotgill, the legendary, the Scourge Troll kind of like payoff card. We've got 3-mana spell Shadow Suffusion that gives your minions death rattle, deal 3 damage to a random enemy. And then we also have the Deathweaver Aura, which is give a minion death rattle, summon 2 3/2 zombies with an overload of 1. So like we've got all of these give your minions death rattle kind of cards, and we can see the payoff right away from the troll, right? So I think this is so cool, and Shaman can flood the board with stuff pretty quickly, so I can see these cards being quite impactful.
It just looks fun.
Yeah.
It just looks like a fun bunch of stuff to do. It's this feeling of like voodoo and shambling undead minions that are constantly coming to back and over again, and you have this board after board after board. And something that I think the Hearthstone team figured out a while ago now is that if you don't have damage from hand, then you can probably let stats get pretty wacky. They can be huge numbers because you can just push them off the board, and then these cards don't do a lot. But if you let them keep the board, then they do an awful lot, and you can make boards over and over again as long as they're not killing you out of nowhere.
It creates a really interesting tension.
We all thought that Imp Warlock was going to need multiple nerfs immediately when Nathria started. They had to, like, I'm glad they made Vile Library nerf, or worse. But that was the only card they ever touched in Imp Warlock, and like, it's solid. It's a decent deck, but it is far from unbeatable, even though it puts out really big numbers over and over and over again. If you're not killing people with them right away, then you can give people a second to deal with it, and you let to make the cards more powerful. So this just looks like a bunch of really synergistic cards that's hard to get off the board. Bloodlust payoff is definitely there, but the video reveal of Rotgill, it's basically all of your minions when they die, they buff your other minions. So trading in a couple small things into a taunt to make them bigger, and then killing the taunt and then going face with your suddenly huge board, I'm about it. It's like a reverse Defile.
That's an interesting way to think about it. Yeah, and I think chat room's been pointing it out, and I think that this is probably immediately where everyone's head goes to, is putting together a Shaman Murloc deck. There's already a powerful Murloc package in Shaman, and because we've got, again, these dual minion types in the legendary is both an undead and a Murloc. There are undead synergies here. There are Murloc synergies in a potential like Murloc Shaman deck. So I think there's a lot of really cool stuff that you can do, and it's kind of enabled by that dual minion type flag card designation. Tag. There you go.
Yes. And also, you have a lot of infuse synergies, so you know what you can put in here?
No.
Murlocula.
Okay, good. I was going to say. What
do you think I was going to say?
I am topping out at 5 mana. I am not going to 10.
No. Murlocula and Famished Fool. I do think Denathrius means aside.
Okay.
I said aside. We're putting them aside.
Okay.
This set does seem to support the infused cards that didn't see as much love, because undead and infused go together really, really well, and a lot of infused cards decks didn't have the bodies.
Yeah,
and we got
the little token
here.
generation. Yeah.
So I expect a ton of decks to be playing Famished Fool, because we need draw and we have minions that die over and over again, and we need the cards. So I would not be surprised to see a lot of it. And Murlocula fits really well here, because we want to play a lot of bodies and we want to play Murlocs. And it's a free Murloc that's happier when our stuff dies.
Mm-hmm.
So it seems like a really natural fit.
Just a reminder, Famished Fool is 5 mana 3/5 Battlecry, draw a card, but if you infuse 4, you draw 3 instead. So very much want to infuse, but can be hard to do. I was like, I just didn't have it to pull up on the screen because it's a Nathria card. Yeah.
Yeah. And Murlocula is the 4-mana 3/4 with lifesteal, and if you infuse it 4 times, it costs 0 instead.
Yes. I mean, everyone knows
it's
Murlocula.
It's famous for been around.
Anything else you want to talk about with Shaman? Because there are a couple of other taunty death rattly cards that we got, but I think the main synergy is around giving your minions death rattles and then getting that payoff.
Yeah, I'm curious if we have 4 cards left here, so we do have package reveals, but I'm curious to see. We've gotten all of Paladin so far, which we'll talk about in a second here. And Paladin, there's definitely like a distinct delineation, but you can put the cards together. And here I see there's definitely an undead thing going on, and there's definitely a death rattle thing going on. I wonder how much the remaining cards overlap, because package reveal could mean completely separate thing to do that doesn't go together, or it could mean something that fits into this deck. And the cards that we see here, I would put all of these in the same deck. So the last 4, I wonder if they will be similar, or if they'll be something else entirely.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we'll have a better idea next expansion once we know what package reveals really look like, because right now we just really don't know. So we'll kind of have to wait and see. But speaking of Paladin, let's jump to Paladin next, because we do have all of the Paladin cards, all 10 Paladin cards. So there's kind of a dragon theme, and then there's a paying your own life theme, which I thought was kind of interesting because it's not a thing you normally think of in Paladin. Paying your own life is a very warlocky thing, but I think like it fits because they have so much healing available. Like I think or maybe it works in the class. And also, again, you've got like Death Knighty feels, right? Which are very, like, again, I feel like paying your own life to become more powerful is a very like blood elfy, blood knight thing.
And we actually had clarity on that from Celestalon, who had a tweet thread today with hashtag behind the cards, which I'm going to keep open in the tweet deck column, because lots of behind the scenes conversation around the design of these cards. So he said specifically a big goal for us with Paladin this set was to highlight the Blood Knights, the Paladins of the Blood Elves, not to be confused with Blood DKs, unrelated, that they approach swinging the light in a different way and don't ascribe to the altruism of other Paladins. We wanted to reflect that by pushing outside the norm of what style of mechanics Paladin usually gets, with things like self-damage and health costs, etc. So I really, really like the Blood Elf cards because they feel almost warlocky, but not quite, because they're about things like Divine Shield and attack buffs. But it definitely is more of like a Demon Hunter Warlock space. It feels pretty fresh. It feels pretty different.
Yeah, so Blood Knights very much are, so as opposed to other paladins and priests who kind of pray to the light and ask the light, Blood Knights control the light and subjugate it. It's a very different approach to power. Same source, different approach. And so I really like that they have found a way to incorporate that kind of darker side of paladins from Warcraft lore, and that it isn't just all, you know, praise the light sort of thing. And I think that they've really done a good job of that. And I'm glad that Celestalon is making a thread, and I hope that he, you know, continues it on once we've seen all of the different classes and the kind of interpretation, because I think it's really interesting to see the team's interpretation of these kind of Warcraft lore moments. And yeah, I think we've got a lot of interesting cards here. So why don't we talk about those dealing damage to yourself for a power boost cards? So we've got Seal of Blood. Give a minion +3/+3 in Divine Shield, but deal 3 damage to your hero. We've got 1 mana 2/1 Sanguine Soldier, Divine Shield, Battle Cry, deal 2 damage to your hero. So again, lots of damage. And Blood Crusader, 6 mana 5/5 Battle Cry. Your next paladin minion this turn costs health instead of mana. Where have I seen that before? Definitely Warlock.
Spooky. Yeah. The something large is going to come down pretty early.
Yeah.
With Blood Crusader.
I thought there was one more.
I like. Yep, and Feast and Famine here as well. I think is pretty fascinating. There is not one more, I don't think, but Feast and Famine is also, it's a card that is it's kind of self-damage adjacent because it's hero healing. It's 1 mana paladin spell, give your hero +3 attack this turn, mana thirst 4, and lifesteal. This is demon huntery, but in a way that paladin has not done this before, really, of a hero attack buff with lifesteal. But it also makes a ton of sense when you're paying life constantly and then getting it back. It feels almost vampiric in a way, but it's also on brand with what the Blood Elves do. So I don't know if this card in particular is going to see play, but I think it's fascinating how they're playing around with the space and managed to make it work. And also, all of the really inexpensive Paladin cards, I don't play a lot of Paladin. I want to do this. I absolutely want to do this. I want to, do you remember Katori Lightblade?
No.
You remember that card?
Well, maybe when you tell me what it does, but I'm bad with names.
Katori Lightblade is a Voyage to the Sunken City legendary Paladin minion. 2 mana, 2/3, I believe. And anytime you cast a holy spell on another minion, you cast a copy on that.
Okay. See, ringing bells.
Exactly. So, it's whenever you cast a holy spell on it, it doubles on something else. Okay, backwards from what I thought. So we have 2 cheap holy spells in this set. We've got 4 Quell Loss, which is 2 mana holy spell, give a friendly minion +3 attack and your hero +2 attack. That was revealed a while ago. And then we've got the Seal of Blood that you just talked about. If you Sanguine Soldier on 1, the 2/1 Divine Shield, that damage your own hero. Turn 2 Lightblade. Turn 3 Seal of Blood. You have a 5/6 Divine Shield and a 5/4 Divine Shield on turn 3. Now, pie in the sky, they probably remove some stuff. But if they don't and you curve out, those numbers are large. They're big numbers. If you hit a Liadrin that way, the new Blood Matriarch Liadrin, 2 mana 3/2, legendary. After you summon a minion with less attack than this, you give it Divine Shield and Rush. If you make her big and bubbly, then everything else you summon is going to be rushy bubbly, and that's going to be very difficult to stick on the board. It feels really synergy intensive, but it's low to the ground. It damages yourself. It does not feel like what Paladin usually does, and I am here for it.
Yeah, it feels like it feels like they're doing the things they normally do because Paladins bubble. That is the
true.
iconic Paladin thing. So they're still bubbling, but they're doing it in this roundabout, backwards, weird new mechanic for the Paladin class. And I really like that about just the design of these cards. And I had the same thought with the new Liadrin card, as I was just like, oh, you can make her so big and then everything gets bubbles. And I was like, I'm gonna love to play this and I'm gonna hate to play against this because bubbles are one of the most annoying things in Hearthstone. I think it's you already have a big minion. Do you really have to have me deal damage to it 2 different ways? Damn it.
What we've seen so far makes me both glad they nerfed Starfish to 4 mana and glad that Starfish is still around, because Silence looks like it's granted. Death Rattles and Divine Shields and stats in general are very vulnerable to Silence, so I'm glad we have a way to do that if this is too good, and I'm glad that the answer itself isn't too good, because Starfish at 3 mana would just turn off all the cool things we've seen. I don't want that to happen, but if it gets too good, I want people to have an answer. So I'm glad Starfish is still around at 4.
Agreed. Do you want to talk about the other thing that Paladins get to do, which is more dragons?
Did you see this coming? I sure didn't.
No, I did not. And did you see this coming?
This is one of the wackiest text boxes I have seen, if not the number one. Like Saucelan said when they did research that this was the most exciting text box in the set.
Yeah.
Anachronos, 7 mana, 8/8 Paladin, Legendary Dragon, Battlecry, send all other minions 2 turns into the future.
I had to read this like 18 times before I understood what that meant. And even then I had to go watch the reveal video because I was just like, I think I know. Do I really know? So it's really interesting because the 2 turns in the future is like counts your own turn. It's not your enemy's 2 turns. But it's kind of interesting because if they have like a board full of stuff, it's gonna come back again. But if they play anything onto the board, like you can still have your minion summoning condition, right? So if you summon a bunch of stuff onto your board as the opponent who's had the dragon played against them, you have to kind of remember what's coming back and in what order, because if they don't fit, then they die forever. And I think from the reveal video, it looked like they like poof crumble, not death rattle. So it's a very kind of interesting card.
There's a lot of nuance to so the functionality. We'll talk about the functionality first. All right. The most important thing. You remember Reno the Relicologist, the hero.
I do.
The Reno hero, the amazing Reno. Okay. So what this does, it poofs the minions for 2 turns, and then 2 turns later, they foop back.
It's the poof and foop.
Out. Correct. You poof out, you foop in. That's the most important thing to remember. Okay. So it's kind of dormant. It's the same timing as how dormant works. Because like you said, it counts your own turn. So it's, when you draw a card at the start of your turn, the second time you do that after playing this is when they come back. So end turn, they take their turn, come back to mine, I draw a card. That's 1. End turn, your turn, come back to me, draw a card. That's 2. They all come back. Every minion comes back at the same time. My minions cannot attack unless they have rush or charge, because they just came into play. When we pass the turn, their minions can attack because they were there in the start of the turn. However, if there's no space on their board, they never come back. They stay poofed. They never foop. So there's no death rattle. They're just gone. So that's the part that I think is hard to evaluate and very interesting. If this is played against you, do you develop or not? What do you do? Because if you had 3-4 minions in play, if you make another board, then this is just a gigafin. But if you don't make another board, then this is an 8/8 that made you skip 2 turns. It's not easy to deal with. It's also a 7-mana 8/8.
Well, and that's what I mean about like remembering even just like play order and what's going to get summoned back and trying to make those decisions as the person who, well, I guess as both players, because it does affect all minions. So I'm assuming you're probably not going to want to poof your own board, but maybe you do. You never know. Maybe you want to save something for later. Who knows?
Bran.
Yeah.
If you poof your own Bran, when he foops back, you'll have 10 mana. And Bran, you know what you can do, Joss?
No. Dislike, thumbs down.
But it's a turn 12 combo. I'm not actually worried about it, but it's something you could do. But it's the only scenario I can think of where you want to poof your own minion.
Yeah. But my point is like, as the opponent who probably had a pretty full board to get the paladin to want to poof it, then you have to kind of remember what order they're going to summon back in, and then make that decision as to like how many spots on your board you take up. And you're probably going to be able to play bigger things because you're going to have more mana. They're later turns. So if you've got like the choice to make between, something in the 5-6 range versus maybe one of your little like Paladude tokens, then you want to play the card and make the big thing. But if that's going to prevent like an 8/8 from coming back, then you don't play the thing and you skip your turn. And I think it's kind of that kind of interesting counterplay that makes me really like this card, because as the opponent, yeah, your stuff goes away for 2 turns, but you have some decisions to make and you have some agency because they're gonna come back. So I like that, it's not a permanent poof. Gotta have the Foop.
Yes, it's fooping makes poofing more fun.
Yes, exactly.
It's just really cool. I don't know how it's gonna play. I imagine that if you're a paladin and you're expecting the game to get at this point, you probably want to play this, because it just seems like an 8/8 that makes your opponent's stuff go away. And we like those, we take
Yes.
those. But I have no idea how it's actually gonna play. I'm excited to find out. I think Paladin got a really rad set.
Mhm.
They have some other dragon cards that went along with it too. I didn't expect them, but when you have a bunch of time traveling dragons, sometimes they just show up. That's just a thing that happens. And it's not what I expected, but it's fun. They look fun. And there's some actual dragon support in the set. I'm about it. Cool.
Yeah, I particularly like the Time Warden because again, we have some of these things that are kind of persistent for a set amount of time as opposed to just things that happen. So the Time Warden is a 4-mana 3/5 battle cry. Until the end of your next turn, dragons you summon gain taunt and divine shield. So not as long as this is on the board, it's not an aura, it's a thing that happens for a set amount of time. So if you play this, you know that you're going to be able to take advantage of it next turn, as opposed to, it getting killed or whatever, or if your opponent can't deal with it, it's not this crazy snowballing advantage. It's very much like a play that you can do without being over underpowered.
Yeah. This turn or next turn. Really like it. I will also, I had trouble parsing this text. If you summon dragons, they don't lose taunt and divine shield at the end of your next turn. It's any dragon summoned in this window get that text permanently. It's a little funky to read because you could definitely read this as give them taunt and divine shield until the end of next turn. That's not what happened.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you get to play this on 4, and then maybe you play a bunch of dragons on 5 if that's something you can do. And it's summon, not play.
Mhm.
So you could use it with Flight of the Bronze, which is right here. It's a 1-mana discover a dragon as a spell. With Mana Thirst 7, also get a 5/5 Drake with taunt. So I think the dream here is you play Time Warden on 6, and then maybe Amalgamate or something. And then on turn 7, you pop out a Flight of the Bronze, you get a 5/5 and another dragon to play right away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think you've got kind of 2 different ways to kind of play Paladin. I'm not sure if you smoosh all this stuff together in one deck, but it seems very much like there is a dragon-heavy deck to be had here, and then something that feels more aggressive and more kind of all-in early with all of these kind of big buff self-damagey things you're going to kill yourself or your opponent's going to kill you pretty fast with a lot of those cards. But I think it's okay because you're also going to kill your opponent really fast. This is an aggressive Paladin play style, I feel.
I like that one.
Yeah.
I want to do that.
Of course you do. Of course you do. How do you feel about Disco Warlock?
It's also not what I expected to see, but kind of fun.
I feel like we're getting a lot of throwbacks. A lot of things that we used to do in these classes, they're making a comeback now, which must actually excite wild players to get some new tools for some old styles.
Yeah, and if we're being honest, Knights of the Frozen Throne is the most popular set in Hearthstone history. I'm not saying it's the best. I'm saying it's the most popular because everybody goes crazy for Death Knights. It's just
true.
Class. Arthas is a character. The Lich King, just people go crazy for him. They love it. It's really rich in terms of lore and history within the game. It's probably the biggest story in the game is that of the Lich King. People go crazy for it. And so referencing that stuff, Team 5 needs this set to do well. And I think it will. And it looks really fun. And I want to play with the cards. But it's also very important for them for a lot of reasons. They are year over year, the 4th quarter of this year is competing with the 4th quarter of last year, which had the Mercenaries release. And regardless of what you think about Mercenaries, it made a bunch of money when it came out. And then they had this year where they spent a bunch of money on it and didn't make a bunch of money. So, you are competing against yourself in a way, budget-wise. In addition, there is a looming acquisition, and they need to make sure that they sell some packs for Christmas. So I am unsurprised that there are some throwbacks here. However, these do not look uninspired. These do not look like just create a bunch of cards just so people will remember it and buy it in nostalgia. These look fun and cool and interesting. But I'm unsurprised that there are throwbacks in a Lich King set. We have even similar payoffs here, because you remember before they printed Hand of Gul'dan, the payoffs for discarding were throw something away to deal some damage, throw something away to summon a minion, and have big things that throw stuff away for me. And there's also the equivalent in core. Jeklik is in core. For those of you that don't know Jeklik, I'll remind you.
Me? Yeah.
It was a 4-mana 3/5 Warlock Taunt with Lifesteal, I think. It had one of those two. And when you discard it, you get 2 copies in your hand.
This is
High Priestess Jeklik.
Vaguely ringing a bell.
Yeah, they had to buff it. It was a 4-mana 3/4. They made it a 3/5. When you discard it, you get 2 copies in your hand. So discard to get something back, discard to deal damage, and discard to summon something. That's the same as Silverware Golem, Fist of Jaraxxus, and Clutch Mother Zavas. Instead, we have High Priestess Jeklik, Soul Barrage, and Walking Dead. So very evocative of those same notes. Instead of Doomguard, we have Savage Ymirjar. I hope that's right. It probably isn't. It's Ymirjar. Immerjar,
yeah.
right? Yes. Okay. We've been playing God of War. It's probably Immerjar. Okay. Yeah. 5-mana 7/7 undead, rush, battle cry, discard 2 cards. So instead of a 5/7 charge, it's a 7/7 rush. It's big. Charge is better, but also they probably shouldn't do that.
Yeah, that'd be bad.
I mean, it'd be good.
Well, yeah,
but it'd be bad.
Yeah. It's not a thing that we want to be doing.
How do you feel about seeing Disco again and how they did it?
I mean, I think it was a really cool deck. It was always this like high risk, high reward play style, and I feel like we weren't doing it for all that long. So I'm totally fine with it coming back. And I think, you know, it's always very interesting mechanics with, like you say, the discard payoff cards. So like the Soul Barrage, like 5 mana, you don't want to pay 5 mana to deal 6 damage, but it can just sit in your hand until you put a 7/7 on board, and then it's a 7/7 with Rush that deals 6 damage randomly among all enemies. Like, that's insane.
Hey, that's pretty good.
Yeah, that's
pretty
so
good.
powerful. And you might get a 2/5 as well. Like, who knows? I think that there's a lot of really cool synergies here, and a lot of design that I like, because I like the slime too. So it's a 5-mana 5/3 battle cry, discard a random undead. So targeted discard. So it is technically random discard, but it's discarding an undead. So if you only have 1 undead in your hand, you know exactly what you're getting rid of. And then when it dies, and it's a 5/3, so it's going to die pretty quickly probably, but it's going to take something with it, you get a bonus and you get to summon a copy of whatever it is that you discarded. So, you know, you're basically getting whatever it was back again. And if there are, we haven't obviously seen all of the undeads, but if there are like really big, really crazy undead minions you can put with this slime, then you could be like, Death Rattle summon a 10/10 with Reborn, because it's undead. They do that.
I'm glad they didn't reprint Colossus of the Moon, because that would be probably too good here. But yeah, this is interesting to me, because this was packaged with the other discard cards, but this does not really fit in the same deck. This is something else. This is a Skull of the Minari, right? You're playing this when you want to do something cheaty and evil and faster than you're supposed to do.
This does feel very cheaty and evil.
Yeah, but it's like, it is a Death Rattle. It depends on what's in your hand, of course. It's silenceable. It's a minion in play, not a weapon that just goes off every turn. But this can get something that's not supposed to be in play on turn 5 or 6 in play on turn 5 or 6, and that's probably worth exploring.
This almost gives me cube feels. and I hated Cube. So I'm
I think
hoping
it
that I
is not
like
too far off.
this more than Cube. Again, I think that Cube specifically at that time in the meta, like Hearthstone is a different game now, so I think I can get behind a Cube like card without totally raging. But at the time it felt like everything and everyone was cubing me and I hated it.
Yeah, so there's a card in Martial Ledge King, a neutral. I'm gonna try and say this without laughing. Flesh Behemoth. Thank you got me covered. It's a 9-mana 4/8 taunt. Death Rattle, draw another undead and summon a copy of it. Imagine you pitch this to slime, eat your slime with a grimoire, summon your Flesh Behemoth from your slime, and then that dies and you draw something else, like anything else. Seems pretty powerful.
Yeah.
Seems pretty strong. Abominable Lieutenant is an undead. That's the one that eats a minion the other side of the board every turn. I don't know. This is a different thing than the other discard cards, but I want to see where this goes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have maybe potentially some concerns, but we'll have to see. Because I mean, obviously,
Let's see what
like I
undead
said,
they print.
yeah, we haven't seen all the undeads, and I think that's the big question mark here. And this is also the first card that has made me go, we have to see the rest of the set. Like normally we're doing that all through reveal season, but we haven't really had to do that because of the package reveals. So like this is the first card that's made me go, I have feelings, but those feelings are going to really kind of rely on what other undeads there are. And we haven't seen them all yet. So question mark, it might be okay, or it might be rage inducing. I don't know.
So, and we only have 5 more cards that could possibly add to this pool because we've seen every neutral and we only have 5 Warlock cards to go. So we know almost all of them.
That's true.
And the best ones we've seen, like the best thing I can think of to summon is Flesh Behemoth. Like maybe Invincible. You could summon Bone Lord Frost Whisper, but I don't think you want to do that.
Probably not.
And the rest are all not that expensive. Like they're not that cheaty. So there are only 5 possible slots for them to print something that breaks this card. And I'm guessing they probably designed around not breaking it right away.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed.
But I understand your concern because this cheats a lot of mana.
It does. All right. Is there anything else that you would like to chat about before we take a moment, thank our sponsor, and take some emails?
Let's do those things.
All right. Then we will be back right after this ad. Have you started shopping for the holidays yet? No? Why not? You can shop right now without leaving the comfort of your frozen throne. Skip the stress and snag some of the best deals of the season on something everyone will love: premium audio products from Raycon. When you're looking for a gift everyone needs or a stocking stuffer that's not a candle for once, Raycons are the way to go. Their wireless earbuds, headphones, and speakers offer premium sound, useful features, and almost custom, comfortable fit, and up to 54 hours of battery life. And as the person gifting them, you've got to love that they start at half the price of other premium audio brands. Plus, Raycon makes it easy with holiday gift guides for everyone in your life. Or who doesn't love knocking that list out all at once and getting 30% off by shopping Raycon's holiday bundles? Personally, I'm a fan of the Audio Lover bundle. You can't go wrong with the everyday earbuds, and they come with the everyday headphones for those on your list that prefer the over-the-ear experience. Everyone needs a pair of Raycons in their ears, whether it's for listening to your favorite podcast, taking work calls, or blasting your playlist and singing along. You know what everyone doesn't need? 2 little white stems hanging out of their ears. Luckily, Raycons are sleek and stylish and come in a range of colors to match anyone's style. You can find Raycons in stores now like Kohl's or Walmart, but let me tell you, you're always going to get the best deal when you use our special link, buyraycon.com/tack. The Raycon website also offers buy now, pay later options. So right now, go to buyraycon.com/TAC and use the code EARLYBF to get 20% off site-wide. That's 20% off any Raycon product, which almost never happens. Or save even bigger and get 30% off Raycon's exclusive holiday bundles. That's EARLYBF at buyraycon.com/TAC for 20% off your Raycon purchase. We thank them for their support, and we thank you for supporting the brands that support the Angry Chicken.
Hello.
Hello, it's me.
Hello.
Just quickly, did you get my message?
Yep.
Oh.
Hello, brother.
You can send your emails to tacpodcast@gmail.com. You can tag us over on Twitter or send us messages in our patron Discord questions channel, like Mike, aka The Village, did. Mike writes in and says, the Mega Bundle has been $80 for 80 packs as long as I can remember. That plus saved up gold would basically get you the whole set. The last couple of years, they've added 20 more cards to get by adding 2 new classes into the game. I think all the cosmetics are cool, and 2 free legendaries are still nice, and the free core set may come into play, but I want more packs. $80 for 90 packs seems reasonable now that there are more cards to collect. This time it includes the Path of Arthas set, which is fine, but in the future I'd like to see more packs added to the Mega Bundle to make up for having to collect 20 more cards per expansion. TLDR. Do you think it's time we rethink bundles? I love the we. Do you think it's time we rethink bundles with now 11 classes, more cards to collect, and mini sets not being new anymore? There are definitely a lot more cards. And I think that, I mean, it's going to be a hard sell to get 80, to change that ratio, I guess, to change it from $80 for 80 packs. I mean, you might see the bundle go up to $90 or $100 for 90 or 100 packs, but I don't really foresee that ratio changing. I don't think we're going to see $80 and have 100 packs in a Mega Bundle.
So fun fact, Joss, we have seen that before. I looked it up. Descent of Dragons.
Oh, okay.
Was $80 for 100 DoD card packs, the Deathwing Warrior Hero, the Shattering card back, a random Descent of Dragons Golden Legendary card, and early access to the new game mode Hearthstone Battlegrounds.
Okay,
Yeah.
so wait. It was 100 cards.
100 packs.
Oh, right, yeah, sorry. 100 packs. And
100
then,
packs, 1 legendary, and
right.
BGs.
And BGs. Okay.
Yeah.
So now we're getting 80 packs, and then we've had, since BG's launched, a whole bunch of other stuff, right? So we've gotten, now we're getting Path of Arthas, but before we were getting the BG's Tavern Pass. There was Merc stuff mixed in there that I never paid attention to. There were arena tickets, I think, at some point.
Yeah.
There's always
And
been
now,
added value.
And they started doing, I think it was this year, but maybe it was late last year, 5 golden packs. And they do 2 golden legendaries now, not just 1. And this time around, it will be signature.
The fancy schmancy ones.
Yes. They've experimented with the ratio in the past. I think this particular Mega Bundle is high value. And I do think the golden packs also are valuable. People like those. I like those.
I like shiny
especially
things.
with the upgrade to signature. But I think this is a reasonable question. I think it's reasonable to say, hey, you're adding cards and also adding mini set. I'd like my dollar to go a little further. I think that's reasonable. I don't know. We're pretty. I guess I can say we're out of touch with the economics, right? I
think that's fair because I mean, even way back in the day when bundles first started to be a thing, and we weren't getting any freebies from Blizzard, which I think we're pretty open about when we do or don't get pre-order bundles and everything else. But I think that even way back in the day, I've been so invested in Hearthstone that it's like whatever it is, it pops up however many times a year, and I push the buy button. And like I do remember it getting to a point when they introduced the 2 bundles, where it was like the second or third time of the 2 bundle pre-order that I was like, oh man, like I'm spending, especially when the Canadian dollar is not doing so hot, I'm like, I'm spending the better part of $200 on Hearthstone every 3 to 4 months. And that was even pre mini sets. So it was the kind of thing where it was this like, probably I was gonna say sweet spot, but I mean it was a sweet spot for Blizzard, much less my wallet. So but it was a sweet spot for Blizzard where like there were just these like big huge expenses every few months, and I know I started to really notice it, but since then I've absolutely become a little bit kind of divorced from that, because I've only had to get like 1 bundle or cosmetics, or like it's felt very much optional for me in the last couple of years, thanks to Blizzard giving us some codes. So I mean, I would say it's fair that we're not the target audience for this question. Like
we listen to people that explain to us how it feels all the time, and we're really grateful to get that feedback. I usually have the set done on day 1, but there are a lot of people that aren't in that situation, and I'd want to make sure that I could recommend Hearthstone in good faith, knowing that getting into this game, they've made a lot of progress for new and returning players. A lot of progress. They've made a lot of progress.
Yeah, I mean, I had a friend
with the rewards track too.
Yeah, I had a friend who just came back to Hearthstone, and has been away for, I think he said it's been like a couple years. But anyways, got 75 packs, 150 packs, I think, all together, because they were 75 from 2 different bunches. And then also had the whole like new deck experience where you get to do the loner decks for a week and then choose one to add to your collection. Like there's definitely a lot of value there for new and, well, specifically returning players. They've definitely come like leaps and bounds. Like I was saying to him, I was like, he was asking me all different things, but like, oh, what do I do? What do I choose? I'm like, I don't know. I've never seen these screens. Like, I don't know what buttons you press. I've never seen that before. So, you know, like, they've definitely done a lot of things to make that new player or returning player experience a lot better and a lot easier on the wallet. But yeah, that doesn't mean Hearthstone necessarily as a game is easy on the wallet, and you want that to be accessible and affordable and recommendable. That being said, obviously things like Magic are way more expensive. But I think, you know, like Hearthstone doesn't necessarily live in the same world as Magic, right? It's a CCG, not a TCG. So
Magic is the poster child for something that you couldn't really do in a video game most of the time. Hearthstone is an expensive video game and a cheap card game. So there's...
Yeah, they're riding that very fine line.
Yeah. So I think, I mean, listen, we're here to advocate for the consumer. More stuff, better. I don't know what their data says as far as how far these bundles go and about what it takes to be competitive. I know that when we talk to people, they often feel like they have to make the choice of spending a bunch of money or being pretty limited. I do think it's important to call out the core is a huge deal. Getting people started. The loaner deck system that they added this patch is really, really great. Giving people free decks. They just kind of throw stuff at you.
Mm-hmm.
But staying engaged is expensive. And you have to give them your time, your money, or both. If there's any advice I can give to new players, do your dailies, do your weeklies. I have 11,000 gold right now from just doing dailies and weeklies, and I just save it up and buy the new set right away. And it's a lot of packs. But But if you don't do that, it's, we
Yeah.
have to.
I think between the dailies, weeklies, and the rewards track now too, because I'm in the infinite gold part of it. In theory, I have the bug that won't let me grab the portrait, so I'm just accumulating levels I can't see. So, fingers crossed that gold comes into my account at some point. But anyways, it's very much like I'm in that infinite gold part, and it adds up really quickly because I also, again, had COVID for a month and didn't engage with any games, not just with Hearthstone, and missed a whole ton of time and missed a whole bunch of weeklies, and they don't accumulate behind like the Battlegrounds ones do. So,
I wish they did that so badly.
Oh man, it would have been so good.
That might be the best econ change they can make.
Yeah.
If they did mission stacking, if they did stacking in constructed, it would be a huge, huge deal.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it doesn't have to cost them anything.
Yeah. But I was going to say, like, all that being said, and I did the same thing as you. I accumulate all my gold and then blow it on packs day one. And I buy the mini set, but I still have like 7,000 gold right now, I think. And I missed a month. So it is, I mean, like there is a lot to be kind of gained by interacting with the system. But like you said, it costs you money or it costs you time, right? Like I play every day, so it's costing me time and they're paying me back in packs later on, basically.
Yeah. So we've danced around this question. I would like for people to get more stuff so we can talk about the game more with them. I do think there is something to be said for it. They've made progress here, but yeah, the game is getting more expensive because they keep adding cards, and that by definition makes it expensive. Throw 5 more packs in. Whatever. Throw 10 more in. It's $80 should get you a good bit, and I am certain that people are more likely to buy packs if they're close to a deck than if they're far from a deck.
I do that all the time.
Yep.
I'll be 1 or 2 cards away from finishing a deck, and then I'll go buy 10 packs, either hoping to hit a legendary or getting enough dust from dusting those packs to craft the legendary that I need, because it's always the legendary, right? You're never missing that one rare.
Well, epics are weird. Epics are in the middle ground where they feel awful to craft, and sometimes you'll open like 100 packs and you'll go for an epic and be missing 2 of them. It's like, what do I do? That's 800 dust. Like, it's half a legendary to make epics that I feel like I should have opened. They're in that weird spot where sometimes you have all of them and sometimes you're missing a bunch. But yeah, that was something that my Blizzard purchase history tells me that I used to do that a lot.
No, you never ever open that account history hat. What are you doing? Only sadness
I did once
there.
And now I don't regret it, but I'm not gonna look at it. Before we get into our final question, we have a little bit of breaking news here that I think is important enough to mention because Joss and I have taken turns being distracted by it. So we found out. It was announced about 40 minutes ago that on January 23rd, 2023, Blizzard will no longer be operating in China. That their agreement with NetEase expired. They're the company that operates Blizzard's games there. They were unable to, here's the quote, "The 2 parties have not reached a deal to renew the agreements that is consistent with Blizzard's operating principles and commitments to players and employees. And the agreements are set to expire in January 2023. I don't know what that means. I'm not going to try and analyze this because I am not a business person or a geopolitical scholar or whatever. Yeah, but it sounds like that there were requests to Blizzard from NetEase that were beyond what was a reasonable expectation. But this seems like a huge deal because that's probably the biggest market for Blizzard. I do expect to get worked out, and it's possible that it might be due to the Microsoft acquisition. Like, I don't know how that impacts things, but I'm guessing there will be some renegotiation there. But still, for this to be an official press release seems like a big deal.
Yeah, I feel like maybe they want to put pressure on NetEase. Like, you don't really know which direction the negotiations broke down from or, who made the big ask. So I don't really want to speculate there. But I think that... yeah, again, not a business analyst people, but I can't you kind of can't remove the Microsoft piece from the equation, right? Like that's got to factor in somewhere, and whether they've officially acquired them yet or not, I feel like it's still got to be a consideration, and they wouldn't want to do anything that would sour that acquisition deal, right?
Yeah, it's your logic makes sense.
Yeah.
I am hesitant to comment further on it because, like, for some reason, people listen to us and take us seriously. You shouldn't do that here. We have no idea.
We don't know what we're
either.
talking about.
Yes. With that being said, NetEase has been the partner for 15 years there. It's gosh, I don't know. This makes me a little spooked because that's a lot of money that's coming into Blizzard. That seems like it's going to not be done. Yeah. Though I did read good news. Diablo Immortal, separate agreement. They're going to keep going. So that's going to keep happening.
Is that good news?
For somebody.
Yeah, I think that and Randy in the chat room is saying it's going to get worked out. Announcement deadline is leverage in negotiations, which is kind of where my head went to, is to say, like, to put out a public statement. And it's you know, a couple of months still before the deadline, because we're halfway through November and it's in January, right? So and of course there are a couple of big holidays on the US side of things, but I think that it's definitely the kind of thing where it feels like they might want to generate some pressure on the other party to kind of work things out, because I'm sure that there's going to be lots of gamers in China really upset that they're going to lose access to, you know, Hearthstone, Warcraft, whatever. Obviously in our case, we're thinking Hearthstone specifically, and it is like they are such a huge partner to the point that, like, Chinese Hearthstone is different than everybody else's Hearthstone. Like, NetEase is so in control over there. Like, I remember they had like super crazy advanced like features that were basically like tournament mode and spectator mode on steroids. And we were like, why don't we have these tools? Yeah, like, why don't we have these tools over here? And the answer is NetEase. So, and you know, the Chinese tournaments have always been separate, and they usually like play and qualify through a different system, the Gold Series, instead of going through what the rest of the world goes through to qualify for the like big end of year Hearthstone tournaments. Totally blanking on what I have World Series in my head, and I'm like, I know that is wrong. I don't know why.
Gold Series.
Yeah, probably because I have Worlds and Gold Series, and it's smooshing together into World Series. But anyways, yeah, they have always been very separate and managed by NetEase. So I mean, that must be just absolutely crazy for Chinese Hearthstone players right now. So I'm sure it is a public pressure thing that they're announcing that negotiations have broken down, and they now kind of want us to be like, fix it, please. So, you know, I'm sure it'll get worked out before it actually finishes, before the contract is actually done.
Yes. So we're bringing this up now because we will probably hear more about it. If you want to know what this means, go listen to Qualified People. But, you know, we tried. We tried, and we made sure that you knew so that you can try too. And if you are a qualified person, then tweet at us. I don't know.
Let us know if we are right or wrong so that we can inform Angry Chicken listeners next week. We do have one more email though, and we have been alluding to it all night. We cannot skip past this email. So, Hat, who does our final email come to us from tonight?
Final email from Hachi Kumo. With Death Knight specializing in minions dying, do you think Sire Daddy D is ready to be nerfed for the expansion to shine? And I know you want to talk about this all episode, so Joss, what do you think?
I imagine that we will see a nerf to Sire Denathrius before the start of the next expansion. I think that we might see him only able to target minions. Like, that's a potential change I can see. They could make him cost 12 mana. They could, obviously that is sarcasm, but you know, it's one of those things where I think they do have to change it. Like they have to, because even just like him on his own was like game ending, game changing. in the show matches today. And like we've said, the show matches are not going to be necessarily exactly what the ladder looks like. It's DKs versus DKs, so there's going to be some flexibility there. But there was a lot of Denathrius, and especially, like Hachikumo said, with the specialization in minions dying and the corpse generating hero power, that is, and actually, Hat, you said it earlier on today too, is that there's a lot of undead stuff, reborn stuff, corpse stuff with Death Knights, Unholy as well. Like, all of this stuff really feeds in, Death Rattles and everything else feeds into Infuse very, very, very well. And that's going to allow some of the cards that have Infuse as a keyword but haven't shone yet see some play in some other classes and some other decks, which is really interesting. But there are Infuse cards that have already seen play, and we need to be particularly careful with the neutral ones because Death Knights can make use of those, and, you know, classes that are specializing in minion based decks and Death Rattles and Reborns and everything else can make use of those Infuse cards. And I don't want to, like, I think the Hearthstone standard community in general is tired of Denathrius. I don't want that to overshadow everything else that's going to happen on day one. So I think he is reached the point of problematic and needs to be changed before the expansion comes out.
Before Lich King comes out?
Yeah.
They won't do that, though.
But they should. Like, I really think they need to.
I think they have that window 2 weeks after launch. I don't think it needs to be immediate. Theatar is the one. We had this very similar argument with Theatar, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where the thing we were worried about is the cool thing getting yanked out of your hand. Denathrius is slower. It's turn 10. The hope is there's other stuff to do to end games similar at a similar speed or faster. That Denathrius does not dominate the standard experience. There are other game enders. There are other things to do. The games are over before turn 10. He's something for slower decks to do. That's the hope, right? But because I got to clarify, I'm a long time Denathrius defender. I like it when games end. I like it when people do powerful things in games end. And Denathrius is in like 2 of the top 10 decks right now. It's not really the same way that you end games. It's not really something that you should expect to dominate your standard experience unless you really like playing slower stuff. But the idea of, well, just make things faster so we don't see him as often is not what a lot of players want to hear if they want to play those slower games. And there are a lot of people excited to play Alexander's Mograine. And Denathrius is going to come up way more often for them. Too often, to the point where you have to run Patchwork and 6-mana Theatar just so you don't die to it. That shouldn't be what you have to do. It needs to be a less frequent experience. I don't think it's too good. I think it's too commonly seen. But you have to make people play less of it, just the same way they had to nerf Theatar to make people play less of it. If they could only nerf the play rate, then they would. But you can't make a card less played without changing how it functions.
Yeah.
They have to make it less appealing because people aren't going to give it up. I don't think it'll be too good. It'll just be too boring.
Yeah, I think too, a lot of the decks that are like playing and finishing with Denathrius are also decks that are going to be running Renathal a lot of the time, right? So it's like you're not only getting this massive heal when you get Denathrius down, if he's not ending games anyways, but then you also have this massive health pool as well. So saying kill them faster, it's like sometimes you just can't. Like, they've already got that bonus 10 health. So then if they're then playing Denathrius even just to heal up, like, that is, you know, crushing to an aggro deck too. I think if we were still living in a 30 health Hearthstone world, sure, Denathrius as he is probably fine because you're gonna kill them before turn 10 a lot of times as a more aggressive deck, and I think that's okay. But we don't live in a 30 card Hearthstone world anymore. We live in a 40 card Hearthstone world with an increased health pool, and I think that is making it so that you get to Denathrius and you heal out of range of anything that's supposed to counter him.
And they might have to hit Renathal too, because you're right. This is the start and end of those games is the same in every class that does them. Because I can't think of any deck that does one but not the other. Maybe Zoo, non-curse Zoo, is the only 30 card deck that plays Denathrius that I can think of. But otherwise, the game starts with a prince and ends with a king. It's it's always just how it goes. You see the pop up, see the extra 10 life, and then the end of the game, toast to all those that tried to kill me. And that's just how it goes. You can't have the start and end of every game be defined by a neutral from last set. So I wouldn't be surprised if both of those get nudged, because if I'm playing a slower deck, I can't justify not running Denathrius.
Mm-hmm.
Even if I want to do something else, even if I have something else that's good, if I'm going to turn 10, why wouldn't I play it? And that probably means they need to make it less appealing, make it more of a choice. It had its time in the sun. I don't think it's too powerful, but I think it needs to be seen less often.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's fair, and I think the combo is one or the other needs to get changed. And I do think I'm glad that they printed Renathal. I think he's very interesting. I think that the trade-off of consistency for a little bit more health, I think that was a really cool idea, and I'm glad that they did it. But I think I'm over it now. And Hearthstone was 30 health, and that's how it was originally designed. That's how a lot of cards are balanced to work in a 30 health world. And so I don't know, there's something about Renathal that is really off-putting. And I feel like they probably tested, when Hearthstone was made, a whole bunch of different health pools, and 30's where they landed as a feel-good spot. So yeah, I think I'm okay with even if I've also seen people throw around Genbaku that they should just be rotated an entire year early, which I feel like is maybe an extreme reaction, but did want to throw it out there because it is an option I've seen the community mention. So
yeah, and they did that with Genbaku because there's literally no way to nerf him.
Yeah.
So if Renathal was 40 cards no health, some people would still do that, and it would not be good. So there's a range there. I think Renathal, so 2 weeks into the patch, if there are a lot of Renathrius decks still around, right? If there's a lot of those still around, Denathal decks, that's faster. I like that more. Nerf Denny somehow, and make Renathal 35 health. 40 cards still, but 35
health.
It's because it's make the advantage a little bit less appealing, where you're only doing it if you're really committed to the bit, not because you feel like you have to. 35 and 40 is much worse than 40-40. But some people still just want to have more cards. Let them, but make me still able to kill them, and make it, make the drawback more significant. Just make the deal a little worse. With Denathrius, there are a bunch of different ways to nerf him. Infuse to only the damage has lifesteal, start the damage at 1 instead of at 5. You could do all sorts of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You could even just take lifesteal off the card. A lot of ways to do it. I don't think it has to be today, but 2 weeks into the patch, if they're everywhere, I would be surprised if they dodged.
Yeah, we don't really kind of have traditionally nerfs in this period in the kind of reveal season. So I agree with you that timing wise and all historical evidence points to a couple weeks after. So yeah, I guess I agree with you. That's probably when we'll see it. I don't know. I wish that we'd see it before, because honestly, I don't want to get day one daddy deed. I don't.
Yeah.
And it's going to happen. I'm going to be mad about it.
It is going to happen.
Especially with Blood DK. So.
Yeah. I wonder, with Demon Hunter, they did nerf faster. And I'm not saying server-side nerf. Anyone that tells you server-side nerf, don't listen to them ever. Because it's such a huge problem for everybody, including the players, because the cards don't match what they say in the client. But they're probably capable and set up to nerf faster with a new class, because they know they might need to. If it's a 1 week nerf and they only hit a couple cards, that might be okay. Like, if it's 2 weeks, okay, we're starting to push it, but at least it's before the holidays, fine. If it's after the holidays, I think they're going to get a lot of pushback on that. If they have a 1 week nerf period, I think I'm totally cool, because they already hit Theatar. They did hit Theatar, and I'm glad they did that.
Yep, that's fair. All right. Well, so much for our... Oh, there's not very many cards this week. Maybe this is going to be a shorter episode. Hands of
I
the
didn't even say
air,
that this
we
time.
give up. But we are done now. This is it. We are done. TAC is supported by our amazing patrons over at patreon.com/TAC. Becoming a TAC patron gives you access to the TAC Discord as well as some other perks. As I mentioned, our Marvel Snap episode has now gone into the main feed. So please do let us know, whether it is through email or Discord or Twitter, what you thought of our Marvel Snap content. Wanted to say a very big thank you to our Patreon producers, Dustin C. and Jarrett F. Thank you so much for supporting the show. You can follow us over on Twitter at TAC Podcast and catch our live show every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern on twitch.tv/JossPlays. Hat, where can people find you on the internet?
You can find me at twitter.com/ridiculoushat. The site seems to still be running somehow. That's the hub of my Hearthstone content. I also do 2 other Hearthstone podcasts. Coin Concede, a Hearthstone podcast dedicated to make the competitive side of the game more accessible to you. And Vicious Syndicate, a data-driven look at the high-level Legend metagame. Joss, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter and Twitch. I'm at Joss Plays. That's JOCE Plays. Please do go check out The Gamers Inn. It is my general gaming podcast. We are currently raising money for Extra Life. It is a charity that raises money for the Children's Miracle Network of Hospitals. We're about halfway, just over halfway past our team goal. I'm actually also about halfway to my individual goal. So if you can drop a couple dollars over there, every little bit helps. You can go to bit.ly/TGI Extra Life 2022 to do that. We're not sure what's happening next week. We're Wednesday night before weird American middle of the week Thanksgiving. So
We do Thursday here. I don't know. That's how it is. So we're going to figure it out. We're going to try and get you some content next week. But yeah, it's obviously this is my fault because Josh's Thanksgiving happened in October at a responsible time. And mine is right in the middle of reveal season.
Yeah, on a day that's adjacent to a weekend.
Yeah. No, we just take that week and just cut half of it off, and the other half is not very productive.
Yeah. So yeah, we're not sure what's going to happen next week, but we will try to get something out, whether we record a little bit earlier, or maybe I'll just do a solo show. I'll just sit here and talk to myself for 2 hours. Who knows? Who knows? I'm not going to do that. That would
I'd
be
listen.
No one would listen. No one should listen. That would be awful.
I would download it.
All right. But yeah, so we are hopefully going to have something for you guys next week. But if we, for some reason, don't talk to you, I hope all of our American friends do have a wonderful Thanksgiving. And until next time, job's done.
Job's done.